Hey gang, welcome to the Gill Athletics Connection podcast, where we bring you track coaches from around the country and connect them with you. I'm your host, Mike Cunningham, and it is my honor and privilege to bring you the stories of these men and women and learn with you what makes them tick. This week, I go to Harvard. That's right. How you like them apples? I kick it with several coaches here in a row at the Harvard University campus. This first one here is Marc Mangiacotti, Associate Head Track and Field Coach there. Coaches the sprints and hurdles on the men's side and horizontals jumps as well. I've known Marc for a long time. He's always been just a dear friend and a real student of the game of how to coach track and field. Really learned a lot about his career and how he got into coaching itself, how he moved as a D3 athlete up into the Division I world from the University of Houston to Harvard and a few institutions in between. And then we really get into what makes Marc tick. And I'll tell you what, it's just a great story about his personal life and his priorities. And I think you're really going to enjoy this. Please help me welcome the great and powerful Marc Mangiacotti. Hey, Marc, thanks for joining me here. Or not you joining me, thanks for allowing me to join you, man. What a great tour here of the Harvard athletic facilities. Maybe as a way to get started, why don't you introduce yourself, what you do?
My name is Marc Mangiacotti, and I'm the Associate Head Track and Field and Cross Country Coach at Harvard University. I specifically work with the men's sprinters, hurdlers, and horizontal jumpers here at Harvard, and I am in my 22nd year of coaching collegiately.
22nd year?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How many years here?
This is my 8th year at Harvard University.
Wow. Holy cow. I don't think I realized the 22 years.
Yeah, right out of college. First year out of college, I started coaching collegiately.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll get through. We'll go through your timeline of how you got there. You and I have known each other. You know, you're interesting. I'm not sure how we actually met. I feel like it was through Coach's Education.
It was, yeah, okay. It was through Coach's Education, and I was at the University of Houston at the time, and we were both eager to learn more, and we invested in our future in the sport of track and field, and went to Coach's Education during the summer months, and that's where you and I first met.
And was I at Mississippi State, or was it before?
No,
that?
You were at the time. You were at Ball State.
Okay, so it was Ball State. Okay, I remember coming to Houston to recruit a kid. I think it was Ivory Williams. Yes, he was out in what was east of Houston?
Beaumont.
Yeah, exactly. Still the best food I have ever eaten with a recruit. His mom made ribs and rice. Oh my God.
Oh wow!
It was awesome. Yeah. I was like, I need to do more of those kind of recruits. We didn't get him. No, in fact, I think he went to Butler Community College.
Yeah.
Actually, is where he went. And then had a good professional career. But when I was there for that recruit, Mississippi State was playing Houston in football. I just remember that, man. That was awesome, man.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun. So, how did you were at Houston? How long were you at Houston?
In total, I lived in Houston for 6 years in total.
6 years. So how did you, and you're from this area, the Boston, so how did you get back here to Boston, to here at Harvard?
Well, I think even more importantly going before that is I graduated from Bridgewater State College, which is a Division III school just south of Boston.
Okay.
And I started coaching there part-time right after I graduated from Bridgewater State. And I was hired to be the men's and women's middle distance and distance coach.
Okay.
And another part-time coach moved back to Florida because of a family emergency 2 weeks before the season started, and they didn't have anyone to coach the sprinters and jumpers, and they asked me if I would like to cover those areas as well, and they would give me both paychecks, both stipends. And at 22 years old, I was young enough and dumb enough to think that I could handle all of these college athletes, both on the men's and women's side, everything from the 60 meters indoors to the 10,000 meters outdoors, including jumps.
And you had just graduated, so these were kids that were on your team, which that has its own dynamic to it. Well, let's stay there for a little bit. So you went to Bridgewater.
Yes.
What'd you major in?
I majored in elementary education and physical education.
Yeah. Was that what you thought you were going to do?
So right out of college, I taught first grade in the city of Brockton, where I'm from, and I would, right after school, just hustle right over to Bridgewater State because it was a part-time coaching position, and I was coaching afterwards. I always thought that I was going to be an elementary school teacher, and hopefully coach at a high school, and had the opportunity to coach at Bridgewater State. and really just kind of caught the coaching bug.
Right.
And while I was there, I realized I was in over my head because I didn't really know much about sprinters and jumpers because I was more of a middle distance runner in high school and college. So I went to a coaching clinic here in Massachusetts. I paid, to go and further my education in the sport, and the keynote speaker at the convention was Tom Tellez.
Oh, wow.
And I learned a tremendous amount of information from him in his sessions, but I also asked questions before and after every session. I thought I was being a burden to him, but he really saw my thirst for knowledge and the willingness to help people. So, he told me if I was ever in Houston to look him up, and that I'd be welcome at any of his practices. And so at the end of that year, my girlfriend at the time told me that she had accepted a job as a physical therapist in Houston. And, the light bulb went off, and I was like, well, I'm going to finish out my coaching here, and I'm going to move down with my girlfriend, and I'm going to try to see if I can learn from Coach Tellez and be part of the University of Houston, which obviously they have a very historic, they have a great track and field history.
Right.
And so the year ended, I moved down to Houston, and started working at a high school because needed to pay the bills, and started working my way up at the University of Houston from being a volunteer. I did going to grad school at the University of Houston, so I did for a class credit. I was able to work kind of like as a graduate assistant to get class credit, and then until Leroy actually hired me as an assistant coach, and so he gave me my first opportunity to be a Division I track and field coach at the University of Houston. And then I always tell people that moving to Houston was the smartest thing that I've ever done because I learned from some great people. I learned from Tom Tellez. I learned from Kyle Tellez. I learned from Leroy Burrell. I get to meet Carl Lewis. I was able to then connect to like Dan Paff and Vince Anderson, these other great people that had worked for Coach Tellez. And so it was a great experience. But the most important thing is the girl that I followed down there, I married. So my wife and I, we grew up 4 houses apart. I've known her my entire life.
Right.
And that's how, to answer your question a while ago, that's how I ended up back in the Boston area, was that my wife and I were living in Houston. We had an amazing experience. We met amazing people. I had amazing coaching opportunities, but we wanted to be closer to family. And so my wife and I decided that we wanted to be back in the Boston area. So I ended up at Wheaton College, Division III school just south of Boston.
Right, okay.
And so I worked at Wheaton for 6 years, and a lot of people were very surprised that I went from Division I to Division III. They were surprised that I went from such a big school to such a small school of 1,500. But I saw potential at Wheaton College, and Paul Souza was the head coach at
jumper extraordinaire.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Great coach, great person, and I thought that was a place that I could really grow as a young coach, and given an opportunity to have my own group, like make decisions, make mistakes, and learn from them, and had a lot of fun working at Wheaton College. I was fortunate enough that my last year at Wheaton College, I was there for 6 years, and in my 6th year, the men's 4x1 won the national championship. The men's 4x4 won the national championship. Wow. But not only did they win the Division III national championship, they ran the fastest time in New England at all divisions in both the 4x1 and 4x4. Wow. So they beat all the Division I teams in New England. So that was a lot of fun.
Right.
And because of that, I ended up at Brown University. And so Michelle Eisenreich at the time was the head coach at Brown. And she called and said, I'm looking for a sprints coach, and I know you're in the area, and you're doing a great job at Wheaton. And so I worked at Brown for 2 years and had a great experience at Brown. It's a wonderful place.
So that makes a lot of sense when this young coach was interviewing for the head coach of the greatest university in the world, Troy University. Mm-hmm. When he called me up and he said, hey, we've got a mutual friend, Marc. He said I should call you. I missed, I didn't know the Brown part of all this. Actually, I'd forgotten Wheaton too. So the number one question I have through all of that is, what's harder to coach, collegiate track athletes or first grade teaching first graders?
I would tell you that teaching first grade is nerve-wracking because if you screw something up in track and field, people are probably going to be all right in life.
Yeah.
If you're screwing things up in the first grade, you might be setting this person on the wrong trajectory, and that is a lot of stress.
I've got a third grader and a kindergartner.
Yes.
I can't imagine. Yeah, we are so blessed with our teachers, man. That's a tough job. You think coaching college track and field is tough. To your point, man, first grade and in that time span, any teacher really, but holy cow.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, what years was that roughly?
Oh, that would have been like 98 to like 2000.
Yeah, imagine it now in 2020. My son's in third grade, and there are, I think, 10 in his classroom, not the whole third grade. There's like 10 kids that have their own cell phones already.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, third grade. And
Lovely.
we live in a pretty nice, city there in Muhammad. There's no need for, it's a small town.
Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy, man. It's unbelievable. So it's interesting, you coached, everything from the 60 up to the 10K. So you mentioned you were more, in Bridgewater, as an athlete, you were more of a 800
middle distance runner, yeah.
Is that right? What kind of athlete were you?
I was mediocre at best.
Oh, what kind of times?
No, I ran, honestly, like when I was a Division III athlete, and I probably belonged in long distance, the 5K and 10K,
okay.
But everyone always wants to run shorter than what they probably really are.
Right.
And so if 800 runners want to be 400 meter runners, 400 meter runners want to be 100 runners,
right.
And 100 runners just want to run the 60.
Yeah. No 100 wants to move to the 4. Right?
And so, I probably belonged in the longer distances, but I didn't, my ego wouldn't allow me to do that. I thought I was more of like an 800 meter runner and a miler. And in high school, I ran the mile and 2 mile at every dual meet because we were trying to win all the dual meets. It was important to our program to have a good dual meet record, and then didn't do a lot of middle distance. So I actually went from being more of a miler and 2 miler in high school to being more of an 800, 1500 runner in college. And like I said, I probably belonged in the longer distances. And so when we ran in high school, in the 4x8, we won the state championship in the 4x8 indoors on this track here at Harvard.
Oh, wow.
And so this place has a special place in my heart. But I was the 6th fastest 800 meter runner on the team.
Okay.
It just, 2 of the guys ran in open events and then came back for the 4x4.
Right.
And Massachusetts had one of those rules that it was 1-1-1. You could do 1 field event, 1 relay, and 1 track event back in the day.
Okay.
And so I was lucky enough to be on the 4x8, and even though I was our 6th fastest person, we still were able to.
Pretty deep team then. If you're the 6th fastest and you guys win the 4x8.
Yeah, and so if I ran under 2:03 in high school, I was jumping up and down, and so that was good for me. But I literally would run the mile and 2 mile at every dual meet, and then just get all of a sudden to the late season and be like, okay, now you're an 800 meter runner, and I was clueless. And then when I get to college, I had some growing pains, and I was struggling to get acclimated to college life, academics. So it took me a while to kind of iron things out right into my junior year. And my senior year, I ran on a 4x8 again at Bridgewater State College at the Division III New England Championship. And I think I ran like 157 or 158 relay leg. And like breaking 2 minutes was like such a big deal to me. And I was, and I know in today's day and age, that would make me...
I still think breaking 2, that's respectable. It really is. We had family day at the University of Illinois track meet this past Saturday. And so I had my kid there, and Jabri Harris.
Oh, yeah.
He's on the staff at U of I, so I got to introduce him to my kid.
Oh, nice.
And my kid knows enough about track. I was like, he ran the 800. And I was like, Jabri ran, 2 laps on the outdoor track, 140, and I couldn't remember if it was 147.
Yeah.
And he's like, 145. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, 145?
Yeah.
Like, that's a... honestly, you run 157, you're like, because I was a half miler too.
Yeah.
I didn't even come close to breaking the 2. So you break 2, it's like, oh, okay, you're respectable.
Yeah.
145.
Yeah.
Dude, and I knew he was a stud anyway, but just, that's a whole different level.
So thankfully I work with student athletes that are way more talented than I was. And I am a... they always say those who can't do coach. And so
I always tell people when they ask me about what kind of athlete I was versus a coach, and I say the same thing, those who can't teach, I go, well, I was a really good teacher.
Yeah.
I really couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was very exponential.
But I think track and field changed my life. It taught me a lot of good values in life and set me up for success and helped me get to where I am today because of, trials and tribulations. Because, in a lot of sports, basketball, football, there's, 5 people in the court working together, 11 people in the field working together, and one person could have a bad day and the team could still succeed, and it might not be as exposed versus, in track and field, you're out there by yourself and everybody knows whether you did good or bad,
right,
and you're in the spotlight. And so as soon as the race is over, or the competition is over, like, was that good or bad?
Right,
Did you win or lose? And
right.
and so I think the sport has really taught me a lot of great values that help me not just as a coach, but also in life. And so I think being a Division III athlete was amazing, and spending time at a Division III school, I think, is one of the most it's probably the best thing that happened to me as a coach, because you learn to deal with not having all of the resources and figuring things out. Right. And the first thing I learned in an education class is, if you walk into your classroom in the morning before the students get there and the sprinklers went off the night before and everything's wet and they're going to have plumbers in there fixing the sprinkler system, you can't go down to the cafeteria and just pop in a movie and have the students watch movies all day. Right. You've got to figure it out. Because they're there to learn, and you've got to do your job, and so you have to adapt. Right. And being a Division III coach, I know that we had to adapt.
It's all about it.
Told you we won the 4x1 national championship. We didn't have an outdoor track. We figured it out.
Oh wow!
And so so you just have to be able to adapt. And I think being a teacher, being a Division III athlete, working at Division III, helped me understand that, like, we're just going to get this figured out. So when things happen at practice, or we don't have access to this or that, we just figure it out.
Right.
And you think about some great coaches that were, in my opinion, that were Division III athletes or worked at Division III schools. Todd Lane at LSU. You think about Kaba Tolbert here at Harvard. Ron Grigg at Jacksonville University. There's many others, and I think that there's a lot of value in that, in having those experiences of being able to do more with less.
Yeah, that's interesting. And some of the coaches you mentioned are in this same bucket. There's a lot of talk about the great Division I coaches. Obviously the guys who win a lot: Pat Henry, Dennis Shavers, and Carol Smiths, and those guys and the gals, and they do a phenomenal job. It's a whole different set of circumstances that they're under, and I don't mean that in like all the positive. They have a lot of positives, but there's their own stressors and negatives that they have to
absolutely
issues that they have to deal with. I always tell people, go look at the Division III national championship final results. Dude, those are some amazing results, especially when you consider no athletic scholarships. Most of those kids were not Division I, Division II recruited. It's unbelievable. There's some of the best coaches technically around in Division III level.
Mike, I 100% agree with you. I think that a lot of times people turn their noses up at Division III, and I think some of the best coaches, some of the hardest working athletes, the most appreciative people are at Division III. And like I said, I was a Division III student athlete, and I had an amazing experience.
Right. Well, so you went from Division III in Bridgewater to University of Houston, which, I guess what's classified as mid-major or whatnot. Obviously, they run some pretty non-mid-major times, but mid-major, but still larger in resources.
Absolutely.
Larger, I'm going to say larger city, only because you were not in Boston proper, but Houston itself. So what was that like? And obviously, you got to share some Tellez secrets, man. One of the all-time greats.
Well, going back to Division III, another thing many people don't know is that Tom Tellez was also a Division III athlete. He was a Division III hurdler. I believe it was Whittier in California.
Really?
Yeah. And so one of the people that I consider my mentors was a Division III athlete himself, and someone that has coached many world record holders, gold medalists, world champions, and so
changed how coaching
absolutely
done.
Yeah, right. And I think that when I first arrived at Houston, it was just amazing because they had more resources than I've ever been exposed to in my coaching career and athletic career, and they had both an indoor and an outdoor track, and so it was they had their own strength coaches and their own athletic trainers, and so there were a lot of really great things. But it doesn't matter what division you're at, what size school you're at. The grind is still the grind, and the athletes are still student athletes. Right. And so when I arrived there, it was really an eye-opening experience, but gave me an opportunity to learn, because it's such a knowledgeable staff, and track and field is huge in Houston. H-Town speed city. So and so it's a great place. It was a great place to learn, but also giving an opportunity to coach gave me the opportunity to understand athletes better, and also understand training better, and giving an opportunity to make mistakes and learn. Right. And so, going to the University of Houston was eye-opening for me. It was exciting. I wore that H on my chest with so much pride. It really, I was so proud to be part of their organization, even though in a very small way. And so it was, a great experience for me. I got my master's degree while I was there in sports administration. In my time there, and I worked in the school system, and then worked my way up to working for the University of Houston. And
what group did you work with there?
So I would when I had my own group, it was mostly the kind of like the 4-8 group, and where I had a background in middle distance, and then learning from Coach Burrell and Coach Tellez and the other wonderful resources that they have there. It was kind of like that perfect marriage of sprinting and middle distance to work with that group. And then I also assisted Coach Burrell and Coach Kyle Tellez, with the jumps and everything that they needed, because when you go to a track meet, you can't always be everywhere, and there's so much going on at once. So if Kyle was dealing with the pole vault, I would help out with the horizontal jumps. If Coach Tellez was in the warm-up area, I'd be on the track. And so just trying to help the program any way that I could. So I had a small part in the actual coaching individual student athletes, but took as big of a position as I could helping the entire program, because I wanted to learn, and I wanted to learn all of the events. And so even though I never competitively came out of blocks, I've never competitively long jumped, I've never competitively gone over a hurdle. These are the things that I love coaching and teaching now.
So where does that come from? Because I talk to a lot of coaches that they want to be the best sprint coach, and so they don't even think about long jump and triple or high jump, or the coaches that just want to be pole vault. There's a lot of just pole vault coaches, right? Where does this kind of breadth of coaching come from?
I think that I have a thirst for knowledge. Like, I just like absorbing, new information and trying things. And so I enjoy the process of learning. And I think that if I just coached one event, honestly, I think I'd be bored.
Sure.
And so I enjoy the challenge of working with multi-events. I enjoy the challenge of learning all of the big things and little things, whether it's big rocks or small rocks. Like, I love it all. And but I also, believe that, speed power is speed power. So, I have a lot of jumpers that can sprint and sprinters that can jump and hurdlers that help on the relays. And so being able to work with that group, I feel like helps us at a track meet, because they're all related in so many different ways. And so, I think that, originally going back to what I said, my thirst for knowledge and wanting to work with all of these groups is a lot of fun for me. And it can be a challenge at times, and it can be a grind, but I enjoy doing it. And I love working with student athletes. And so it gives me the opportunity to, meet and work with a lot of wonderful people, and also give back. And I think that's a really important thing for me in learning life lessons. And
well, you had the Tellez's, which they've given so much to this sport and coaching aspect, as well as a coaching athlete, coach to coach, as well as a coaching athlete. And then you did some USATF education as well. Which level 2s and stuff did you get there?
So I did level 2 sprints, hurdles, jumps. And then
who was that? Was that Dennis and Gary?
Yeah, it was Dennis, Gary, and Amy at Miami. And then when I did, and then I also did with Cliff Revelto and Rock Light, the combined events. And then obviously Boo, Jim, and Kaba for the jumps. And so, so it was just great experience, great learning. It was a lot of fun, and so happy that coaching education exists.
Right.
It exists in more levels than it did before, and different groups. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because information is information, and the fact that we share things in our sport is awesome.
Yeah.
That we want to help each other, we want to be on the same page, we want to speak the same language. I think is really important, so that we're not all calling the same thing different.
Right. Yeah.
And we're all confused by everything. Yeah,
that's right. That helps us all. And I think through level. First of all, on a lot of those teachers that you mentioned, the Garys and Boos and such, are very much in that same vein. They're not like, you couldn't pigeonhole them. You may say Boo is a jumps coach, but that guy's coached 100-meter guy.
Yeah.
4x4. One time the 4x1 at LSU, when Boo was there, they won the national title, and I don't think they had a single 100-meter guy on it. I think it was two 400-meter hurdlers, I think a triple jumper.
Oh, wow.
And then maybe an open 4, but there was no pure 100-meter guys, and they won the title, so Boo obviously had a lot of influence there, and Dennis and Pat as well. And Gary, of course, another great long jump, triple jump, plus hurdles, plus sprints. So, probably coached high jump for all I know. But that variety of knowledge, and again, to your point, on the basics, power, speed and power on the bottom of the pyramid are all the same in that sense, and then you kind of start working to specificity, and then techniques and stuff like that. Yeah, that's interesting. And are you doing, or have you done any? Because you mentioned about the different types of education that we have out now. Back when you and I did it together, it was just USATF besides camps and clinics.
Yeah.
Now we have a very robust USTFC, CCCA education as well. Do you do any of those?
So I did the strength and conditioning. Anytime I get an opportunity to listen to Boo talk is always a great opportunity. And so he asked me to host a track and field academy at Brown University when I was there. So I was able to host it and participate in it. And then when there was another strength and conditioning certification offered in Rhode Island when I was still working at Brown, I took advantage of that as well. And obviously, Kaba, who's on staff here, teaches the sprints and hurdles at the academy. So, I feel very fortunate that I work with a great sprints jumps coach. And, we're always going to have problems as coaches. And I have this great network of people that I can reach out to that are mentors, whether it be, Boo. And like you said, he's very well-rounded. Boo has made me a great sprints coach, even though that everyone thinks he's a jumps coach. Yep. And he's such a good coach in every event. And, we've used him as a consultant along with Dan Paff. And, I've blessed enough through coaches education to have a lot of connections to a lot of other great coaches, whether they're peers or whether they're people that are my mentors. But I feel even equally as blessed that I work with somebody that, if I'm having an issue with a student athlete or a group or a situation, that I have someone in, 2 offices away that I can go down and talk to and kind of talk through it with him. And I think that we really kind of complement each other well in that way, that, I don't always have to make a phone call. I can literally walk, 10 meters down the hall and have a conversation.
You get the 10-meter and the phone line.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And, and you mentioned Boo, and I can't ever say enough good things about Boo. A little bit like, I think you mentioned it with Telez about how you felt like maybe he thought you were being a bug and a pest or whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing with Boo. When I first met Boo, I don't even remember where the first place I was, and I'd email him, and he would respond. And I was nobody. Nobody. It was amazing. And then when I signed up for my first level 2, I wanted to be that singular coach. I wanted to be the best sprints and hurdles coach. I didn't care about jumps. I didn't care about distance, things like that. So I tried to do the sprints. Mike Korn calls me up and says, "Hey, it's full, but I do have a jump slot." And I was like, "Well, I guess I gotta coach it, so I guess I'll go." It was the best.
That's probably the best thing that ever happened.
I did sprints and hurdles the next year, and I had Dennis and Gary, and I don't think it was Amy that year. It was in Asheville. But, they're great. I mean, they're fantastic. I mean, Dennis and Gary, come on. And if Amy was the other one, that was awesome, But I still went back and I learned with Boo more than anything, man.
Yeah, I had said that I loved my experience in level 2 sprints and hurdles and had great presenters.
Right.
But I also said that the next year when I was in the jumps group, that I learned more about sprinting in the jumps group than I did in the sprints group. And I don't mean that negatively.
That's not negative,
it
right.
was just the truth.
That's right.
It was like, Boo is such a good teacher.
He is such a good teacher.
He's so knowledgeable. He's obviously a great coach, but what I think makes him a great coach is he's a great teacher.
Yeah, agreed.
He takes advanced concepts and makes them very easy to understand. And I do the same thing at practice. I took that directly from Boo, like the cues that I use, and when I'm having conversations, just keep it simple.
Right.
Like, I work at Harvard. I get it.
Right.
People probably think that I need to give some high level,
Yeah. You're doing
$1 million word,
right.
cue, and then the reality is, like, just keep it simple.
Right.
Because if you can do the simple things, great things are going to happen.
Right.
And I learned that from Boo, is that when you're teaching people, like, the more you talk, the more you overcoach, the bigger words you use, just the more confusing it gets.
Right.
And so just keep it simple. And I remember sitting and learning about, basically biomechanics and the physics of athletics. And this man just made it simple.
Yeah. It was the training theory part that, for me, that just changed my whole coaching. I mean, I coached for 10 years and had Boo at the end of my 5th year, and you clearly can see a difference in the athletes I was able to produce my second 5-year block versus my first. Without a doubt. I mean, and that middle was actually my 2 years at Ball State. So I had 2 years, 1 year without Boo at Ball State and 1 year with. You had a great, phenomenal long jumper, triple jumper. She had jumped just under, I think I got her at 20 feet and then 40, maybe 40, 41 in the triple after Boo. So she went 22 something that year and 40, I think she wind dated 44 something and legal 43. Yeah. I mean, it was just, it was a huge, and, ran on our 4x4, split 52 or something like, I mean, it was just a whole different ball game when you think of things that are a little different. Can you draw stick figures as well?
Yeah. No, I try, but man can draw some stick figures.
I think that's his spatial awareness and how to put it in a 2D is just phenomenal. So Houston was great, and a lot of great people. Who was the head coach back then?
Coach Burrell had just taken over.
Okay.
Yeah, so Leroy was the head coach.
He's been there a long time.
Yeah, and he's done a great job.
Yeah,
just an amazing job.
Man, that's interesting. I was having a conversation last year with a couple of coaches, and we were trying to come up with coaches that had been at their same university for a length of time. It seems like the average time is shrinking. But we were able to come up with a couple. I don't think we mentioned Leroy, though.
Yeah.
I thought about him.
Yeah, I can't remember what year he actually started, but when his career was over as a professional runner, pretty soon afterwards, when Coach Tellez announced that he was going to retire, Leroy took over. So went from Coach Tellez to Coach Burrell, and
was that before 2000 or?
I think it was right around there.
Okay, I think it's 20 years.
I want to say it was just before 2000.
Wow,
is my recollection.
So he's been the head coach for 20 years.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And again, it feels like yesterday. I was watching him on TV set the world record.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man, we're getting old, man. We're just getting old.
And we're not getting younger.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get here to Harvard. This is obviously a very unique institution. Academically, hopefully everybody understands Harvard and the academics and such, and how that plays into here. Over the past 8-9 years, you guys have had some incredible success. We were talking earlier, one of my favorite trivia questions is, what school holds the women's indoor 200-meter national record? Most people would guess, great athletic programs like a USC or an LSU or Miami at Florida, whatever. And it's Harvard.
Yeah.
It's a Harvard. What was her major? Tell me her name. Gabby
Thomas. So
what did someone who ran that fast major in?
I believe she was, I'm trying to think. She was looking into going to medical school. Okay. I think she kind of changed her train of thought, and it was still in the sciences, but as she went through her 4 years here, Kaba obviously coached her in the sprints, but she... I believe she was neurobiology, and
neurobiology.
Yeah,
I can't spell neurobiology.
And so, but she is a shining example of someone that came here and did well academically, did well athletically, and just really got it done at Harvard. And a lot of times people say, well, you can't run fast at Harvard,
right.
And we hear that in the recruiting process, and it's just not true.
Is that because of the stereotype of the weather, or is it the academics?
It's probably a combination of things.
Yeah,
like
the academics. There's other great academic institutions that do really well.
Right? Absolutely,
like Stanford and UNC, and the Harvard of the South, Troy University.
Exactly.
So there, it's not unprecedented.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, going back to D3, look at some of the D3 majors from an MIT and other colleges that I love looking at. USA Today, at least used to, print out an All-American team, but regardless division, academic. And so you'd see these football players, and they'd be neurobiologists and nuclear, and they'd be like, holy cow, these kids are doing full-time football and studying this. And they were, they weren't just all Harvards. They were, schools all around, Carnegie Mellons and things. So it can't be just the academics.
No, it's I think that being successful here at Harvard for me was not only understanding the athletic side of things, but understanding the academic side of things. And so when I started to better understand the academics here, I became a better athletic coach here. And so both myself and Caber are both first-year advisors. So we advise, first-year students each year, and they're not necessarily athletes. They're definitely not on the track and field team.
Okay, I was going to ask, track athletes.
And so I have...
so what's that entail?
And so we basically help first-year students navigate the trials and tribulations of adjusting to college.
Okay.
And so with picking classes, having the right balance, resources that are available to them. So we have to go to the first year you had to go to an orientation that was, all day long. You learn everything about Harvard, right, and all the wonderful resources that we have, because there's so many that it's almost confusing.
Sure.
And then from there, each year we have to go back to a half-day one just to get a refresher, because there's always new things and things to kind of go over and reminders. And so Caber and I are both first-year advisors, and so we've learned about like all of these wonderful things that are available here and things that student athletes go through and when they're going to go through those things because of how the academics are set up here. And I think that being academic advisors here have really made us better coaches and understanding, what goes on. So we recruit really hard. We recruit high-level students, high-level athletes, and we care about their academic and athletic success while they're here. And I think that's how our entire staff has really helped raise the bar in Harvard athletics. And so the team, last year our men's program 2 out of the last 3 years had the highest GPA in the country for Division I track and field programs, and our guys are not taking very easy classes. They're challenging themselves. And
so you're telling me my public relations major, which was I was basically just in the student newspaper, wouldn't have fly either. And
so
I still wouldn't have made
but I think that the students take challenging courses, but they have courses that they take where they can explore and learn about other things as well, and but maybe not be as intensive, but still quality courses. But the thing is that but they care about athletics as well. And so we recruit high-level student athletes and people that are a right fit for Harvard, that they want to be high-level athletes, but they truly care about the academic side of things. And I think if someone just cared about academics, they wouldn't be a good fit for a track and field program. If they just cared about track and field and didn't really care about their academics as much, like they probably wouldn't be a good fit. We have a good balance, and I think the proof is in the pudding, because not only have we had the highest men's GPA in the country 2 out of the last 3 years, but we've also had All-Americans and people qualifying for their junior championships, under 20s, and also their country's national championships and things of that nature. So we've had a lot of success, and it surprises people that we have success athletically, but it's not a surprise that we have success academically.
Right.
But we get it done on both sides of the river. I explained to you that
right.
On one side of the river is Boston, the other side of the river is Cambridge,
right.
but we're all one campus. But like
right.
I said, athletics is on the Boston side, but we get stuff done on both sides of the river.
So to get into Harvard is no easy task. So the kids, the guys and gals that make it in here are obviously already at a high level academic place in their life. How hard is it? Would that not make it easier for them to transition to college, because they're already used to presumably rigorous academics and studying and papers and what have you?
I think that's a great question, and I think that the struggle of adjusting from high school to college is probably the same at every school in the country, because the people that you're admitting are the right fit for your institution.
Okay.
And no matter what school you go to, it's going to be a struggle. And so, yes, we have kids that are, have great academic success in high school. But when they come here, they have to hit the ground running and make sure that they're working at a level that the professors kind of throw at them. And I think, yes, they are prepared for it, but they have the same adjustment that other student athletes all across the world go through, which is moving away from mom and dad or family members, or having someone else cook your meals, or going to school for 12 years with the same people and having a comfort level of adjusting to not only a new room, but a new person in that room. And there's a lot of things that I think students go through when they go to college, and it's the same here. So, the struggle of adjusting to college is real. And it doesn't matter what school you go to. It's you have to make sure that you have the right resources and communicate well so that you can adjust. And I think that we have the resources here where the students do adjust fairly well once they get to campus. And I think that, other schools have their resources as well that help students adjust to their first year on their own. And so I think that, academically, we have students that took rigorous courses and did well academically in high school, but the expectations are for them to come in and do the same. And if you're at a different school and whatever their minimum GPA and SAT requirements are when they come in, the expectations are the same. You got to adjust.
So it's maybe less of the academic pressure, which there certainly it obviously is cranked up coming to a Harvard versus no matter what high school they went to, I would assume. But then when you add that mix of I'm not beholden to a family member, like, I have to be home at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, mom or dad or whomever is going to check in on me most times. Well, here I don't have that. I could be out till midnight. No one would even know. So you have to be able to adjust to those. And you're in the city of Boston, which obviously there can be a lot of, you can find yourself in a lot of mischief here. What percentage of athletes are coming from this Boston, New England area versus the rest of the country, even the world?
It's funny. We have the ability to attract people from all over the world. We have people from all over the United States, all over North America, the Caribbean, all over Europe, Australia. We have people from all over the place. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to recruit the brightest and the best in the world. And so it's really an opportunity to get to know people, get to know different parts of the world, get to know, how their track and field systems work, because the high school system here in the United States is very different than in Europe, the club system versus a high school system. And so, we truly do have an opportunity to recruit all over the world. And we have people from the New England area, but like it's not like a high percentage of our student athletes. We just recruit the brightest and the best. We don't care where you're from.
What's it take roughly to get into Harvard?
A really solid GPA, a solid SAT or ACT score, extracurricular activities, but the most important thing, honestly, I feel, is being a good community member. And so if you're a good community member and admissions knows that, then I think you have a shot. All the other things need to be in order as well.
Right, but there's not like a strict man, if you're under 30 something in the ACT, don't even.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's case by case, because depends on is there a story and things like that. So it's a tough. We get that question a lot, but it's a really tough question to answer because it really just depends. And so sometimes people have to go through a couple extra hoops, take a little bit longer to make the process work, and some people are blessed and are already kind of ready to go.
Right.
And so it really depends on the high school and where they're from and things like that, because some high schools have people taking the ACT and the SAT as a sophomore,
right.
and some schools won't let them take it till their senior year, and they don't encourage it. And so so the process to getting to Harvard is different for every single person that applies, whether they're a student or an athlete. It doesn't matter. The processes could look completely different.
Right. Have you ever called a recruit or a recruit's coach to get more information, and they were surprised Harvard was really Harvard?
Yeah.
Like, are you really from Harvard?
I will say that it's interesting because I had never experienced this before. When I got to Harvard, I remember making a phone call one time, and a parent was like, I answered the phone and I said, he's Coach Mangiacotti from Harvard University, and said the name of their son and said, are they available?
Right.
And I remember the parent covering the phone and then yelling the kid's name and saying, "It's the coach from Harvard." and I was like, "Oh, that's nice."
Yeah.
And so it was like, there was at a level
excited.
a really level of excitement. I think, people know that this place opens doors.
Yeah.
And so, the opportunity to find out if it's a possibility is exciting, I think, in a lot of ways. And so...
Did that kid come here?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Do well? And
Yep.
Good.
Did well academically, did well athletically,
Awesome.
and is doing great in life.
Yeah.
And so, but it's, I think the biggest thing is that people don't know that this is an opportunity, because they think it's like such, like a reach of a school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that they like, there's no way I could get to Harvard. So it's not even in their mind.
Right.
But the reality is, like, all of the Ivy League schools are wonderful. They're great academic institutions. They have great coaches. Just it's a great environment overall. All 8 schools are amazing.
And you were talking about earlier, it's amazing how schools, the cost of going to school now is, the sticker price is very sticker shock.
Correct.
I think you mentioned it was $70,000+ all in.
Correct.
Here. But you were mentioning maybe something that Harvard's doing with its endowment for all students.
Yep.
Of different income levels.
Yeah. Harvard doesn't want someone to be admitted. They did the work in high school, and they have the GPA, the test score, the extracurricular activities and things like that. And then when they get accepted to Harvard, they don't come because they can't afford it.
Right.
That is not what they want. And so what they try to do is set up a financial aid system that allows it so that anyone that is accepted to Harvard can afford it.
Okay.
And so whether they want to pay it or not is up to them,
Right.
but they can at least afford it.
Right.
And so, they have very competitive financial aid that, rivals, like if you get into, your state school and Harvard and you qualify for financial aid, it would probably cost the same or less to come to Harvard.
Wow.
We don't have athletic scholarships, but we have
Right.
maybe the most competitive financial aid in the world.
Because isn't Harvard's endowment either the largest or one of the largest?
Yeah, it's the largest in the world. It is climbing up to almost $40 billion. It's almost double of what the second largest is. So,
Wow.
So we're very fortunate, and that's why we have all of these wonderful resources.
I'll say, well, it's good that they're giving. I mean, the endowment is supposed to be to give back.
Yeah,
to students to give to the university.
The school does. The university itself does an amazing job of making sure that the undergraduates have everything that they need on every level. And
Right.
so they really invest back in the institution, at the graduate level, so that people are set up to, go to graduate school, go to medical school, or just they're ready for the working world, and that they're set for life. And they truly do care about the students that that come to Harvard and want to see them succeed while they're on campus and after they leave.
Do most students go on to get a secondary degree, or do they go into the...
It really just depends on, what their major is and what they want to do and their passion. So it's a tough question because it really just depends.
Yeah. Like on your team, or what's the split of people who go straight into the workforce versus go on and become doctors? And
I'd say a majority of them go right into work. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them end up going to get some sort of degree afterwards. Mm-hmm. But I think, they finish their time here and having that life experience mm-hmm. is kind of the next step for them. Mm-hmm. We do have students that go directly to business school or med school and things like that. But I think a lot of people are itching to get out there and do work. And,
sure, after 4 years.
And it's nice, but they're very fortunate because a lot of the student athletes here, are recruited by companies, and so one of the things is that they're being pulled into the workforce before they even graduate.
I was going to ask about that. You have a very highly sought after student body from businesses around the world, mm-hmm. and not just America, right? So do you have to? What's it look like? What's the conflict for kids that are doing summer internships at different jobs? And I mean, is that a conflict or?
I guess it could be, but it's not because we have student athletes that are passionate about the sport, mm-hmm. and they stay active in the summer and want to be contributors to this program, and so they get things done over the summer that they're supposed to.
Do they ever have to leave early before first round and finals or anything like that? Or
no, the students are pretty organized and they try to set up their summers so that it doesn't interfere. And like I coach a student athlete, Miles Marshall, and Miles from Houston, Texas. And during his first year at Harvard, he had qualified for U.S. Juniors and the 800, but wanted to have a summer experience. And so, but he couldn't give his whole summer to whatever that experience may be because he wanted to run at the championship. Right. And so that wasn't going to be a possibility. So he was able to find an opportunity in Vietnam working for Coach for College.
Where?
In Vietnam.
Wow.
And so it's an opportunity for varsity student athletes to go over to Vietnam and teach English and sport at the same time in very rural areas. And you could do 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks. It's broken up different ways.
Okay.
And so he was able to have Harvard fund that trip so that he could go for the second half of the summer.
Yeah.
And so the student...
What an experience.
Yeah, and so we've had a number of student athletes here go through that experience and love it. They love the program. And so the students are really good at, finding things that will work or communicating early enough that they know that, hey, I'm not going to be able to start until this date.
Right.
And so, we haven't had a lot of conflicts with summer opportunities because, we want them to have those experiences so that when they graduate, they have experience.
Better, well-rounded.
Yeah, and being offered jobs before they even graduate.
Right.
So, but it's, but we're blessed in that manner.
I can't imagine going to Vietnam for something like that. That's amazing. Something else we talked about earlier today was this Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge. Is that what it is? HYOC?
Correct.
Yeah. So I'd never heard about this, but this is some track meet that you guys have been doing since 1891. So what is this? It's like a dual meet, but
correct.
4 teams.
So the oldest international rivalry, international competition in track and field is actually the HYOC competition, and so it's Harvard and Yale versus Oxford and Cambridge. Okay. So you almost could look at it as US versus UK.
Yeah, sure.
And it used to be.
Where did Bannister go to school? Oxford.
Oh God, I can't remember.
Those two, right? Oxford or Cambridge?
Yes.
And
he was a doctor. When that was the thing when he broke 4 minutes in the mile. Not only was that an amazing thing, but he was in medical school.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was started in 1891, and the student athletes have an opportunity every 4 years to go over to England and race against Oxford and Cambridge. And so Harvard and Yale during our historic dual meet each year. It's obviously a rivalry, but on an HYOC year, when we're going to HYOC, the winner of each event gets to go on the trip, plus the Yale staff and the Harvard staff sit down and fill in the rest of the team to make sure that we're well balanced.
So how many kids total are going?
I believe it's between 50 and 60 between the men and the women.
You bring so many per event?
Yeah, and so it's capped on each side on how many scorers you could have. Most of the time, the meet is scored on winners only. So if you win your event, you get a point. That's it. And so it's head-to-head battle. And you can have also people that are non-scorers that you brought, maybe if there was an injury or someone was sick or something like that, and they can still participate, but they're not scorers. And this actually happens every 2 years. We go there every 4 years, but 2 years afterwards, Oxford and Cambridge come here, and so so every 2 years it just switches back and forth, whether it's on U.S. soil or over in England. And so it's a historic. It's like I said, the oldest international track meet in the world. Predates the modern Olympics.
And you've been on.
I have not been on the trip.
Really?
So I've been here for 8 years, and so I've watched them go on the trip on 2 different occasions.
Who makes these decisions? Who do I need to talk to? Talk to Jason?
So I actually opt out of it because I am a co-director of the largest track and field camp in the country.
What?
And we run it right here at Harvard University. And so
right?
Yeah,
Is
so
this by numbers?
Yeah.
How many kids?
So we have a 2-day clinic in July, and I employ college coaches from over 30 different colleges and university from all over the country, and we get anywhere from 400 to 500 student athletes at it every year. We have Division 1, 2, and 3 coaches. We have some high school coaches that we've employed that do a really nice job, and it's an opportunity for high school student athletes to be exposed to some of the best coaches in the country. And I consider a lot of these coaches my friends, so it's an opportunity to work and learn from them. And so because of that, and a good friend of mine, Lateef Thomas, owns CompleteTrackandField.com, and so the name of the clinic is the Complete Track and Field Clinic.
Okay.
And so Lateef and I are co-directors of the clinic, and he does things that I don't like to do, and I do things he doesn't like to do, and we end up being a perfect marriage of of working together. And so
he's very active on social.
Oh yes, yeah. And so through his marketing, it became really, really big. And so
these kids from around the country, or are they
around the
primarily
world?
New England?
Nope, we have
around the world.
We have kids from around the world that come to this. This summer will be our 10th anniversary.
Wow.
So 10th year doing it. We started it when I was at Brown. And at our first clinic, we had, say, like 150 people, and we thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
And
then,
that'd
be a lot. Absolutely.
Word got out, and we expanded, and the number grew the next year. And then I came to Harvard, and we have the facility. We have an indoor and outdoor track right next to each other, plus all these other facilities. So we're able to expand, and we got to a point where we were getting over 500 kids at this high school track clinic, and we had over 250 people on a waiting list. And, we feel like we found a sweet spot of right around 400, where it's like the right balance of like an excitement because there's a good number of people here, but the individual attention. So every single student athlete leaves feeling like I learned a lot.
Do you break them off into groups?
Yeah. So
what do you keep the groups at roughly?
So it depends on the group and how technical it is and how many coaches we have at it. So the sprints and hurdles are like, we'll have 100 hurdlers and 120 sprinters because we have the space for it.
Right.
But then in the high jump, we have 2 high jump areas.
Right.
And so we're going to try to cap that between 35 and 40.
Right.
And then long and triple jump is going to be, because we have 4 different areas that we can use, it's going to be around 50. Yeah. So it really just depends on the event
Pole vault
group.
probably less.
Yeah. So we call ourselves the Complete Track and Field Clinic, but the dirty little secret is the only event we don't have is the pole vault.
Is that because of safety or coaches?
No, it's actually because of polls.
Yeah.
Because we would have to find out right before the clinic who signed up, what size pole, and so we have plenty of polls here, but they're for Division 1, men and women, and so then we have to try to chase down polls from all the local clubs and stuff like that, and it just became too much with such a large group of student athletes coming. So unfortunately, that's the only that is the only event that we don't have.
Almost complete track and
Exactly. That's the dirty little secret. We did have it at Brown, but when we came here, it just became too much because of the number of people. But we try to keep the coach to athlete ratio pretty tight, so that, like I said, we are proud. Not only do we have a large clinic, we are proud that we have a curriculum for each one of the groups. We have a tight schedule for each one of the groups.
Right.
We have classroom sessions. We have learn by doing, obviously, and we have great coaches at it, and then that's why we sell out every year, and we always have a waiting list. Right. And so
I like the fact that it's not just a money grab, because obviously you could go to 750, and
absolutely,
and the experience level for those kids would obviously go down at that level, but you're very
the quality of the experience is very important to both Latif and I.
Yeah, right. That's funny you said that. He does some things you don't agree with, and vice versa. You make a great marriage. So that's my great segue. So that was Coach Mangiacotti. Now let's talk about Marc.
Mm-hmm.
You're married to a beautiful young lady that you've known forever. I forgot about this growing up together, 4 houses down. So what do you like to do outside of track? Obviously, track takes a long time, or much of your time. What are your hobbies, interests?
Anyone that knows me well knows that I thoroughly enjoy hanging out with my wife.
Agreed.
And we have a great relationship. She grew up in a neighborhood with all boys, including me. When I was 6 years old, I couldn't stand her. I hated her. Which, now that we're adults, we know when you're 6 and you don't like a girl, it's because you really like her.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, I ended up. I could show you my cell phone. I have a picture of Carrie and I at our first communion. I have a picture of us at our.
I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah. I have a picture of us at our senior prom. I have a picture of us, pretty much all through life. Going to the Museum of Science when we were kids, and going through a lot of life experience. But I truly enjoy spending time with my wife. And one of the things we like to do, and we do it a lot during the week because I have practices and responsibilities here at Harvard, is we go out to eat. We love eating out. And so 4 years ago, we started a New Year's resolution, which I typically do not have New Year's resolutions. And we decided to do one together. And it was to try one new restaurant in the Boston area every month.
You got a lot of choices.
Yeah. And so when I grew up and Carrie grew up, Boston was mostly pubs. But now there's unbelievable amount of different world-class, great food, great eating experiences. And so we decided to, hey, let's experience all of this, these opportunities here to have food in the Boston area. And so for the last 4 years, we've been doing that. And not only have we had tried a new restaurant every month, we average just over 2 a month. Yeah, and so we've done that for about the last 4 years. Actually, this is the 4th year, 2020. Wow. And so it's something that we do, and so that we make sure that not only we get out to eat each week, but like we're trying somewhere new each month. And rather than just doing the same thing over and over, that can get stale. And so, we have the places that we frequent the most, but we also enjoy trying new restaurants. And so during the week, while the season's going on, that's my wife and I love spending time together. We love hanging out and going to new restaurants and having food. But
what's been your favorite one?
So there's a place in Somerville which attaches to Boston, and it's called Sarma. And the chef is a James Beard award-winning chef, and she is Turkish, and so it's Turkish tapas. And and probably 50% of the menu is vegetarian, and I'm not a vegetarian, and I thoroughly enjoy meat. But you get a vegetarian dish there, and you want to lick the plate clean. Yeah. It's so good, so flavorful, and they pass around food as the night goes on. So you order your own food from the menu, but they'll come by with specials and just show it to you, and if you want it, you just take it. Right. And one of the specials they typically have is fried chicken, and it's the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life, and it's from a Turkish restaurant. Yeah. Right. And so I've bragged about this place. I hype it up, and people go to it, and they're like, there's no way it's going to be as good as he said, and then when they come back, they're like, that's the best meal I've ever had. Really? Yeah, it's a solid
like
place.
Type of food because it's small, so you get a variety. Yeah. Instead of just ordering one, I always like that type of style. The hotel I'm staying at has a tapas restaurant called the Medora, or Matadora.
Oh, right.
It's a big bowl and all that kind of stuff, and it's tapas, and so you get little things.
You try a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is my wife and I travel. So being a collegiate track and field coach is not a lot of time for that, but she comes to my wife will come with us on spring break. Once in a while, she'll come to different meets here and there. Like if we're at regionals for a week, first and second round, she'll come with us. But Christmas night, my wife and I don't have children, so we take a red eye somewhere. And so every year we will fly typically to Europe. And from Christmas night until when the student athletes come back at the beginning of January, we travel because the student athletes aren't here. It's basically a recruiting dead period, so it's the perfect time to travel. So we always pick somewhere. This year we went to Portugal. We've been to Spain twice, Italy twice. And so it's a perfect time to travel. And so we definitely have the travel bug. Being a collegiate coach, there's not a lot of time to travel, but when we have it, we try to do it right. And the other time is at the beginning of August when it's another time where you can't do home visits or anything like that. So we try to plan a trip at the beginning of August as well.
And when you're doing this travel, are you just sightseeing, or do you like go to art museums?
We do everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes we plan trips that are go, and sometimes it's lay on the beach. Yeah. And sometimes it's a little bit of both, depending on where we go and the time of year.
Right.
And so we just enjoy new things and new food, new culture, new everything, and even new languages. I found that when you travel to Europe, if you just learn how to say, no disrespect, but I don't speak this language. Do you speak English? If you can say that in the native tongue, you get the best treatment in the world.
Is that right? Because you've shown an effort,
to at least try to communicate in their native language. But
that's a good tip.
But if you just go in and say, "Do you speak English?" they just think you're a stupid American. So
especially when you had your Texan accent.
Yeah, exactly.
You always kind of had this New England accent, though. You didn't pick up much down there.
Yeah, no.
Maybe it softened a little bit, but it's always been New England.
So I took a class when I was in college at Bridgewater State called Voice and Diction, and it was to actually help you get rid of your Boston accent.
Okay.
And so it's because it's primarily an education school. They wanted you to be able to, project and enunciate the correct way. And so my accent is actually dramatically less than what it used to be.
Yeah, it's not a Boston accent. Yeah. That's why I always say
social in
Massachusetts. New England accent. It's not a Boston. There is a very distinct. If you've ever been here, you know the very distinct Boston accent.
And so my wife has more of the Boston accent, and we grew up 4 houses apart. We had the same accent, so mine's dropped a bit because of the class. But anyone that knows my wife, when she says my name, it's not Mark, it's Marc, because of the accent.
Yeah, she has that. It's that. I won't say subtle. I mean, it is Boston, but it's that. She says it is a unique type of Boston. Yeah. It's not that hardcore.
So we grew up in the South Shore. And so there's a difference in the accent between South Shore, Boston, and North Shore.
Really?
And if you live here, you actually know the subtle differences between it. But we're South Shore.
All my Boston accent knowledge is from Marc movies. Marc
Wahlberg.
Marc Wahlberg. Yeah, that's all my
Dorchester guy.
I'm glad you said. I got scared for a little bit, Marc. We've known each other for a long time, and you started off by saying, "If anybody knows me, they know," and I was like, oh my God, if he doesn't say his Marc, I don't know Marc.
Yeah.
And God, you said that because I love running into you guys at convention or if we're at Oregon or, again, one of those meets where we're at for a whole stinking week for a lot of times. It's always been your calling card. And it's really interesting to see a relationship that's been so long. How long have you known her? Your whole life?
Yeah, she moved into our neighborhood when she was 4 years old.
So did you meet her? Well, neighborhood. So of course you knew her right off the bat, basically.
Yeah, so I remember the day that they moved in. Her family moved in on I think it was like a Friday, but I didn't see any kids. I remember a friend of mine. We were playing basketball, and we were like, are there going to be any kids? Right. And we were trying to figure out if the new people were going to have kids, and we didn't see any kids because they were just moving stuff into the house.
Right.
And then the next day I walked down the street, and a bunch of my friends were standing around this, redheaded girl with pigtails on a big wheel. And I was like, who is this?
Oh, wow.
And that was the first time I ever met my wife.
Wow.
I was 4 years old. Yeah.
And when did you guys, at what age, are you guys roughly the same age?
We graduated high school the same year.
What age roughly did you start actually dating? When did it become... I don't like her to, let's go on a date.
Well, junior year in high school, Carrie got her driver's license before I did. And so her parents had an old car that they had saved so that when she had her license, she could drive to school. And so she would pick me up on the way to school, and so we would drive to school together. And I definitely knew that I really liked her a lot. And a good friend of mine asked me to the junior prom like months in advance that we were going as friends. And then Carrie was asked by another guy that we were both friends with. And so we went to the junior prom separately, but we danced half the night together. And so the next day was basically our first date. Yeah. And so it was the day after our junior prom, and so we've been together ever since.
Wow. Ever since?
Yep. And we dated through rest of high school, college, moved down to Houston with her, and got married while we were in Houston.
You got married down there,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
We got, when we were living down there, but we got married up here because it's where our family is. And then we moved back up here and bounced around a little bit in the New England area as far as my positions, but we've been together and we're living here in Boston and love it.
That's awesome, man. What a great place to be. This city is, it's one of my favorite cities. I travel around the country, and a lot of people ask me, what's your favorite place to go? And I always tell them, honestly, the favorite place to go is home.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
travel
true.
so much to come back home. But I don't get really excited about a lot of places because they're all the same to me. Air quotes there. There's good places and there's bad places. There's good food, bad food, good people, bad people.
Yeah.
But, it's all the same. And mainly I'm in offices like this, or I'm in a convention center. So the temperature, or a hotel. So it's always 70 degrees.
Yeah.
When it's colder, I'm usually inside somewhere. But Boston, I came here about 8 or 9 years ago, right when you started here, for a different convention that actually got, you probably remember this, a lightning strike hit downtown Boston that put out, all of Boston went to a blackout.
Right. Yeah.
And we were supposed to be here for a intramural convention, and because of the electricity being out, they had to cancel it. But they only canceled it one day at a time. They're like, yeah, we're not doing it today, so come back tomorrow. So I had the day off in Boston. And I walked the
Freedom Trail.
The Freedom Trail, yeah. And you see all this history.
Yeah.
I went to, I wish I knew which one it was because I'd go back. I'm sure a simple Google search would tell me. But we went to this one bar that had this very unique semicircle, half-circle bar, very small, one guy in the middle shucking oysters.
Oh, Union Oyster House.
Maybe.
It's the oldest restaurant in the United States.
In this bar was actually Daniel Webster's dictionary. It was his desk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Sam Adams makes a beer just for that bar.
I wonder if it is the Union Oyster.
Yeah, that's what I don't know.
Because my guess is
it had a big place.
Yeah.
This was just a unique bar. I don't know how we lucked in to get, because it only sat, 6 people maybe. Real awkward. Is at an angle.
Yeah,
like you put a beer down, half of it would spill out.
Yeah.
And this one dude would just shuck oysters right there. And it was like, dude, I am at a place that no one else, I may never run into someone who's been at this little bar, drank this beer. What an experience.
My guess is there was a Union Oyster House, and if it was, it's known as the oldest restaurant in the United States.
Yeah, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, so there is a lot of history here, American history.
Yeah.
War, not war, you name it, inventions. So it is. It's a unique place. I find it to be an amazing place. Obviously, being from the Boston area, I find that Boston is the center of the universe. I'm a little bit biased.
It's probably pretty close. If you could just do something with the winters, I'd come back more. It's 20 degrees outside right now. So.
Very much like you said, we have a beautiful indoor track.
That's right,
whenever I turn the lights on, it's always sunny and 70.
Exactly right, man. Exactly. Hey, I know you've got to get going. We did an hour and 15, man. I could keep going, too. You're so interested. I'm so happy for you, again, knowing you for so long, and knowing you at different places. This is your fit, man.
I appreciate it, man. It's been great doing this, and it's always good to see you. You're
Absolutely,
so great to our sport, and appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, brother.
Good to see you.
Oh, man. That just melts my heart. Marc's love for his wife is second to none. He needs to prove that to no one, but I tell you what, he proves it over and over every time I see that beautiful couple together. Just shows you what love and how it can work out as a track and field coach with your priorities in order of what is most important. So Marc's got it going on, and I know you can too. So hey, if you've made it this far, thanks for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed connecting with Marc as much as I did. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, please contact me at hurdle@gillathletics.com. That's right, hurdle@gillathletics.com. In the meantime, we hope you feel led to share this podcast on your social media network of choice, and join us next time when we once again connect with another great track and field coach.